to the mental health cause as if that's a fucking bad thing. Take a fucking seat if that's your problem with this, and you refuse to you refuse to engage in Bell Let's Talk because of it. Okay, take a seat and shut your goddamn mouth. Because end of the day, all that you're doing is shitting on something that is donating this year almost $7 million. And that's not to some fake Bell charity that's doing nothing of actual value. That's $7 million going to a number of different organizations to help with a number of different mental health related issues. Like I said, anti-stigma, care and access, research, and workplace health. Could Bell, as a company, do better? Absolutely. But if you have a problem with them saying, hey, this is our initiative, it's Bell's initiative, Bell is doing this, and it's coming from Bell's coffers, and you have a problem that Bell is going to get a little bit of publicity out of the fact that they're doing something. I'm sorry, but they don't do this out of the goodness of their own heart. They do it because they want that publicity. They want to be to at least appear to be a company that cares. And yeah, maybe they could be a little bit less self-serving, a little bit more altruistic. But end of the day, it's still $7 million. Like, good Lord, people. $7 million. That's not fucking chump change. It's millions of dollars towards mental health care. It's a great number of people feeling comfortable talking about their mental health struggles. It's the safety of knowing that you can share. And knowing that while you're sharing, money is going towards making it easier for absolutely everyone. It's just absolutely disgusting that does Bell get a little bit of publicity? Absolutely, but fuck you if you're not going to participate on that basis alone. Or if you are, if you're gonna take a stand against Bell in that way and not going to participate in Bell Let's Talk, okay. That's absolutely fine. For every single one of the social media posts that you do that day, I want to see 5 cents coming out of your goddamn pocket. Put your money where your mouth is, you piece of garbage. Fuck. All right, that's enough. Calm, cool, collected. We're going to end this on a happier note today. I'm going to talk about a podcast that I listened to this week, Homecoming. It's coming to Amazon Prime. And I'm really looking forward to this, guys. Just don't be a garbage person. Just if you have a problem with people celebrating something, just shut your mouth. So, I think I've mentioned this on the show. I think I mentioned in the first episode of the show, actually. I absolutely love podcasts. I listen to so many throughout the run of a week. And, of course, I have my favorites. I have my ones that go right on to the queue right away. And I make sure that I listen to them as soon as I possibly can. Usually those are like the news podcasts, Love It or Leave It. Got Pod Save America. I also really enjoy listening to ENC's Pod of Awesomeness from former professional wrestlers Edge and Christian. But this past week, I had subscribed to this show, but I had never downloaded any of the episodes. And it's a narrative show rather than this sort of podcast that this is actually a sort of a radio drama in a way. It's called Homecoming. It's from Gimlet Media, and it's a fantastic show that is basically the story of a character played by Catherine Keener, she was this caseworker in this secret semi-governmental like post-war medical facility for soldiers returning from, I don't think it's ever actually said, but it's like Afghanistan or Iraq or one of those wars basically. And it also features David Schwimmer, Oscar Isaac, Michael Cera's in it. You've got Alia Shawkat. You've got David Cross. The list goes on. Anyhow, it's a very, very good show. I believe that it's done. It's a fictional story, and I believe it went over 12 episodes over 2 seasons. I think that there's still questions that they could answer if they wanted to put a third one out. Anyhow, I highly recommend it. It's a good sort of day and a half of listening if you want to put the time into it. It was basically discovered. I basically discovered this week in listening to it that Universal Cable Productions has purchased the rights to produce Homecoming as a TV series, and Amazon has the show for a 2-season order. Julia Roberts is set to star in the series in lieu of Catherine Keener. Sam Ismail, who created Mr. Robot, will produce, direct, and write the show. Along with the podcast original writing staff, including Eli Horowitz and Micah Bloomberg, as well as other Gimlet staff members, are going to assist in the writing of the show. Also on there, playing the part of the young soldier returning from war is going to be Stephen James, who's a Canadian actor. It's been on Degrassi and in the 2016 film Race. In addition, Bobby Cannavale will be in it. Shea Wingham from Boardwalk Empire and True Detective is going to be in it. Anyhow, long story short, I think that this is something that you're not going to want to miss if they're able to capture the same feel that the podcast did. It's a really great show that sort of combines suspense and mystery, and just you end up really feeling for Heidi, the main character, and you never know. She's pretty much the only person, I think, throughout the show that you end up being certain of, that you want to be on that person's side. Everyone else, it's really messy, but in a very, very wonderful way. Whether or not you like Colin Belfast, who's played by David Schwimmer in the show, is going to be Bobby Cannavale. It's just very, very good, and I hope that you take a listen if you're into that sort of thing. I've also posted about this on social media channels, but I don't think I've talked about it on the show. Along the same sort of lines, a sort of a narrative podcast that's getting television treatment is Welcome to Night Vale. Of course, Night Vale is back. I haven't gotten a chance to listen to the newest episode, but looking forward to that one as well. Other podcast news, since I guess this is just going to be the podcast corner of the podcast. The Nerdist is no longer going to be The Nerdist. The Nerdist, the company, is still going to exist, and I assume sort of the radio network, the podcast network, is still going to exist. But the flagship show by Chris Hardwick is changing its name to ID10T, which is his sort of new venture. So if you don't know, like Chris Hardwick, who created the Nerdist, sold those rights a few years back, and he's sort of been and continues to be sort of a figurehead CEO for the company. He sort of does whatever they need him to do, but there was some question about whether or not he was going to be able to still be on board with the company, and he wanted to sort of make sure that he'd be able to keep the podcast going in a way that he wants. So he still owns the podcast in full, but the podcast's name is changing. Apparently nothing else is going to change, really, but it's turning to ID10T, which I love as a concept, and I love it as a name for a podcast network, or a podcast show, I guess is a better way to put it. What else can I talk about podcasts now that we're sort of on the topic? I'll just throw a couple more recommendations out there. Of course, at the top of the show, I talked about Riding Cards with Cats. Really, really highly recommend that you go out and check out the most recent episode of that show once again, because it's very, very well done. John Green, author and co-producer of the Vlog Brothers on YouTube, has just come out with his newest show called The Anthropocene Reviewed. It's really weird, but it's really fun. He's talking about, he's reviewing on a 5-star scale all of the things that make up sort of the human condition, the human existence, and the existence in the world as we are able to interpret it. Very, very good show so far. There's only been one episode so far, but I like it so far. I think it's really good. If you're a fan of Mike Birbiglia, as I am, stand-up comedian, you should go listen to his limited run show. It's over now, but it's called The Old Ones, because he's building up to releasing his new stand-up comedy special, the new one. So he's going over all of his old stand-up specials with people who were sort of involved in it. On that show include Judd Apatow, Pete Holmes, and his wife Jennifer Stein, Ira Glass, his brother Joe, and John Mulaney. Really, really good stuff. What else can I recommend? Of course, Elwood City Limits, friends of the pod. I should try and get Lucas on here at some point. I've never met Lucas in person, so it might be a little bit weird for him to just come on to a show that he knows nothing about. But hey, Lucas, if you do listen and you'd be interested, let me know. Be happy to have you on. And I guess that'll be it. Larry Wilmore's show is always great. Black on the Air. This past week, he had David Frum on the show. I haven't had a chance to listen to that yet, but Larry's show is always fantastic. And apparently, this one was from a live show that he did in Los Angeles. So, looking forward to taking a listen to that once I'm done the podcast here. Once I'm done Elwood City Limits, because that's the one that I sort of paused in order to get back on to the recording trip, which is something that I needed to do. So I think that's going to do it for there. Kind of wrapping up the show in general. Just trying to get all of the sort of potpourri stuff out of the way. Kind of back to sort of the normal length of a show this week, rather than going sort of the full hour that I did the past couple of weeks. Looking at having another sort of regular segment on the show that might have some audience participation associated with it. And this is as good a time as any to sort of announce it. And I'll announce more in a more concrete way once we get closer to actually starting it. But something that I've always wanted to be a part of is a book club. The problem is I'm not a very fast reader. Also, a book club, you have to set aside time to actually go out and meet people in person, to talk about things and to discuss different chapters and what have you. And, you have to get to the end of a book in an amount of time, and a certain amount of time you have to buy the new books, or you have to try and get them at the library. My girlfriend's doing that now, and just like it seems like a lot of hassle to actually be in a book club. But I've always wanted to be in one. So why not use my podcast to start a book club. So this is something that I've been thinking about doing.